Detective Clara Hayes was no stranger to strange cases, but this one felt different from the start. The call came at 12:47 a.m., a frantic woman named Rachel Carter reporting her husband, Dr. Elias Carter, missing during a research trip to Blackthorn Manor. Known for his work as a historian specializing in occult artifacts, Elias had been investigating rumors surrounding Nathaniel Blackthorn, a reclusive industrialist who vanished over a century ago after constructing the ominous estate. Clara arrived at the edge of the forest surrounding the manor just as the storm intensified. Lightning illuminated the towering silhouette of the mansion, its spires jagged against the sky like broken teeth. Locals whispered about curses tied to the property, claiming anyone who ventured too close never returned unchanged, or at all. Some spoke of shadowy figures seen wandering the grounds at night, their faces obscured beneath hooded cloaks. Others claimed to hear disembodied voices calling their names from within the woods. As she stepped into the woods, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every sound, the snapping of twigs, the rustling of leaves, seemed deliberate, as though the forest itself conspired against her. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing gnarled trees whose branches twisted unnaturally toward the sky. The air grew colder with each step, and frost began to form on the edges of her windows despite the summer season. When she finally reached the clearing where Blackthorn Manor loomed, her breath caught. The mansion was monstrous, its facade crumbling yet somehow regal, as if it refused to surrender entirely to decay. Windows were shattered or boarded up, but faint lights flickered within, casting eerie shadows across the walls. An open door creaked softly in the wind, inviting her inside. Clara hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. But something compelled her forward, an unshakable sense that answers lay beyond that threshold. She stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under her weight. The smell of mildew hit her immediately, mingling with the faint metallic tang of rust. Dust motes floated lazily in the beam of her flashlight, swirling as if disturbed by unseen forces. On the wall near the entrance hung a portrait of Nathaniel Blackthorn himself. His expression was unreadable, his eyes seeming to follow her every movement. Clara shivered, brushing off the sensation as paranoia. Her radio crackled with static, though no one else was on the channel. "This place is messing with me," she muttered, shaking off the unease. She pressed deeper into the house, following muddy footprints that led further into the labyrinthine halls. Inside, the air was heavy with decay. Dust blanketed every surface, and the faint scent of mildew clung to the walls. Clara's footsteps echoed through the cavernous halls, each step amplifying the oppressive silence. Her flashlight beam danced across faded tapestries depicting scenes of opulence tinged with despair. Grand balls interrupted by shadowy figures, smiling faces morphing into grotesque masks. One tapestry stood out, a depiction of Nathaniel Blackthorn standing before a swirling vortex of black energy, his arms raised as if commanding unseen forces. Around him knelt figures clad in tattered robes, their faces obscured. She followed the muddy footprints leading deeper into the house until she entered what appeared to be a study. Books lined the shelves, many of them crumbling with age. Papers littered the desk, some written in languages Clara didn't recognize. At the center of the chaos lay an open journal belonging to Dr. Carter. Its pages were filled with frantic scribbles about the Obsidian Chronicles, a supposed collection of artifacts tied to Nathaniel Blackthorn's experiments with immortality. One passage stood out. "The Obsidian key unlocks not only doors but dimensions. To wield it is to court madness. Yet I must find it, for if the legends are true, it holds the power to rewrite history itself." Clara paused, rereading the words. Madness? Dimensions? It sounded like the ramblings of someone teetering on the brink of insanity. But then again, why would Elias risk coming here alone, unless he believed there was truth to these claims? Before Clara could process the implications, a loud crash echoed from upstairs. Drawing her weapon, she cautiously ascended the grand staircase. Each step groaned under her weight, amplifying the tension. At the top, she found herself in a long hallway, lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow her movements. At the end of the hall, a door hung ajar. Inside was a bedroom, frozen in time. Elegant furniture covered in dust, a vanity mirror reflecting nothing but darkness. On the floor lay shards of glass, likely from a broken window. A scrap of fabric snagged on the jagged edges suggested someone had fled in haste. Then she saw it, a small obsidian key resting atop the dresser. Its surface shimmered unnaturally, almost alive. Against her better judgment, Clara picked it up. Instantly, the temperature dropped and the whispers began. "You shouldn't have come." The voice was soft, almost melodic, but carried an undertone of menace. Clara spun around, her heart pounding, but the room was empty. The voice came again, softer this time, almost pleading. "Help us!" Her flashlight flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a brief moment. When it stabilized, Clara noticed something odd. The reflection in the vanity mirror wasn't hers. Instead, a gaunt figure stood behind her, its face obscured beneath a hooded cloak. Before she could react, the reflection vanished, leaving her staring at her own wide-eyed expression. Clutching the key tightly, Clara backed out of the room, her mind racing. Whatever this place was, it wasn't natural, and neither was the artifact now in her possession. Back at the precinct, Clara pored over the journal while waiting for updates on Dr. Carter's whereabouts. His obsession with the Obsidian Chronicles became clearer with each page. According to his notes, Nathaniel Blackthorn had sought eternal life using forbidden knowledge gleaned from ancient texts. He believed the Obsidian key could unlock a portal to another realm, a place beyond death. But there was more. Dr. Carter mentioned encountering others drawn to the manor over the years. Historians, occultists, even treasure hunters. None returned unchanged. Some went mad, others simply disappeared. Clara wondered how much of Carter's research was fact and how much was fevered speculation fueled by isolation. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Standing outside was Evelyn Price, a former colleague of Dr. Carter's. She looked pale and disheveled, clutching a folder tightly to her chest. "He warned me you'd come looking," Evelyn said, stepping inside. "Elias always said the manor chooses its visitors." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, gesturing for her to sit. Evelyn hesitated before speaking. "Years ago, we worked together on a project involving Nathaniel Blackthorn. We uncovered evidence suggesting he didn't disappear. He transcended. Using the Obsidian key, he opened a gateway to somewhere else. But whatever he found consumed him. And you think Elias is trying to replicate his work?" "I don't know what he's doing," Evelyn admitted, "but I do know this. Once you're touched by the manor, it never lets you go." She handed Clara the folder. Inside were photographs of artifacts linked to Blackthorn, including sketches of the Obsidian key and transcripts of interviews with people who claimed to have seen glimpses of the other side. One account described shadowy figures reaching through cracks in reality, whispering promises of power and salvation. Another recounted a man who claimed to have spoken with Nathaniel Blackthorn himself, describing him as both benevolent and malevolent, a being torn between worlds. As Evelyn left, Clara noticed something odd. The folder smelled faintly of smoke, though none of the papers were singed. And when she flipped to the last page, she found a note scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. "Find the vault. Destroy the key." The message sent a chill down her spine. Who had written it? And why did they want the key destroyed if it held such immense power? Determined to uncover the truth, Clara returned to Blackthorn Manor the next evening. This time she brought reinforcements, but they refused to enter, citing equipment malfunctions and unexplained fear gripping them the moment they crossed the tree line. Frustrated but undeterred, Clara pressed on alone. Using the map from Dr. Carter's journal, she navigated the labyrinthine halls until she reached a hidden passageway concealed behind a bookshelf. Descending into the depths of the manor, she found herself in a cavernous basement, illuminated by eerie green light emanating from veins of glowing crystal embedded in the walls. The crystals pulsed rhythmically, as if alive, and their glow cast unsettling shadows across the chamber. At the far end stood a massive iron door engraved with runes. The obsidian key fit perfectly into the lock. As Clara turned it, the ground trembled, and the door creaked open to reveal the vault. Inside, the air was suffocatingly cold. In the center of the chamber floated a swirling vortex of black energy, pulsating like a heartbeat. Around it were pedestals displaying artifacts, a dagger etched with arcane symbols, a mirror reflecting scenes that couldn't possibly exist, and a crown forged from obsidian stone. Each artifact radiated an aura of dread, as if imbued with centuries of suffering. But it was the figure kneeling before the vortex that froze Clara in place. It was Dr. Carter, or at least what remained of him. His skin was pallid, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. He turned slowly, a manic grin spreading across his face. "You're too late," he rasped. "It already knows you're here." "What have you done, Elias?" Clara demanded, her voice trembling. "I've seen eternity," he whispered reverently, "and it sees me." Before she could react, shadows erupted from the vortex, coalescing into humanoid forms. They lunged at her, forcing her to retreat. Desperate, she grabbed the nearest artifact, the obsidian crown, and hurled it into the vortex. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the chamber. The shadows dissolved, and the vortex collapsed in on itself. When the dust settled, Dr. Carter was gone. Clara emerged from Blackthorn Manor, shaken but alive. The forest was eerily silent as she stumbled back to her car, her hands trembling as she clutched the journal and the obsidian key. The adrenaline rush had worn off, leaving behind an unsettling numbness. She couldn't shake the image of Dr. Carter, his hollow eyes, his manic grin, as he whispered about seeing eternity. What had he meant? Had the vortex truly shown him another realm, or had it driven him mad? Back at the precinct, Clara pored over the journal again, searching for answers. Evelyn Price arrived unexpectedly, her face pale and drawn. "You shouldn't have gone back there," Evelyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The manor doesn't let people go easily." Clara ignored her warning, focusing instead on a revelation buried deep within Carter's notes. Nathaniel Blackthorn hadn't transcended. He'd become trapped between worlds, his consciousness fractured across dimensions. The obsidian key wasn't a tool for immortality. It was a prison key, meant to release him fully into reality. And now, thanks to Clara's actions in destroying the obsidian crown, the seal holding him back was weakened. Evelyn confirmed this grim truth. The artifacts weren't just tools. They were anchors keeping Blackthorn contained. By destroying one, you've loosened his grip on whatever holds him captive. Clara felt a chill run down her spine. "So what happens now?" Evelyn hesitated before answering. "He'll come for you. He knows you're connected to the key." As Evelyn left, Clara noticed something odd. The folder she'd given her earlier smelled faintly of smoke, though none of the papers were singed. When she flipped to the last page, she found a new note scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. "Find the vault. Destroy the key." The message sent a chill down her spine. Who had written it? And why did they want the key destroyed if it held such immense power? Weeks passed and life returned to normal, or so Clara tried to convince herself. But the whispers never truly left. They lingered in quiet moments, growing louder with each passing day. At first they were faint, almost imperceptible, a murmur in the background as she worked late into the night. But soon they became impossible to ignore. One evening, unable to sleep, Clara stared into her bathroom mirror. For a brief second, she swore she saw someone standing behind her, a gaunt figure cloaked in shadows, his face obscured except for piercing eyes that glowed with unnatural light. His lips moved, forming words she couldn't hear. When she turned, the room was empty, but on the counter lay a single object, the obsidian key. Its surface shimmered, beckoning her to pick it up. Against her better judgment, she did, and the whispers grew deafening. "You belong to us." Clara dropped the key, clutching her ears as the voices overwhelmed her. When she opened her eyes, the reflection in the mirror wasn't hers. Instead, a gaunt figure stood behind her, its face obscured beneath a hooded cloak. Before she could react, the reflection vanished, leaving her staring at her own wide-eyed expression. She realized then that the key wasn't just an artifact. It was alive, feeding off her fear and drawing her deeper into its influence. Whatever connection she'd formed with it during her time in the manor was growing stronger, and it wasn't going to let her go. Unable to resist the pull of the key, Clara found herself driving back to Blackthorn Manor under the cover of darkness. The journey felt surreal, as though the world around her blurred and shifted subtly. When she arrived, the manor seemed darker, more menacing than before. The whispers grew louder, guiding her steps. Inside, she discovered new rooms she hadn't noticed during her first visit. One contained a library filled with ancient tomes bound in human skin. Another held a laboratory littered with alchemical tools and vials of glowing liquid. Each discovery deepened her understanding of Nathaniel Blackthorn's obsession with immortality and the cost of his experiments. In the library, Clara uncovered a book titled The Chronicles of Eternity, written in a language she didn't recognize. As she traced her fingers over the pages, the text shifted, translating itself into English. It spoke of a ritual known as the veil binding, which required three components: the Obsidian Key, a fragment of Blackthorn's essence, and a willing host to anchor the gateway. Clara realized the horrifying truth. The key wasn't just a prison, it was a conduit. Whoever wielded it would become a vessel for Blackthorn's return. While exploring the manor, Clara accidentally activated a hidden mechanism, causing the floor beneath her to collapse. She landed in a subterranean chamber unlike anything she'd ever seen. The walls pulsed with organic veins of light, and the air hummed with an otherworldly energy. Here she encountered the remnants of those who had attempted to use the Obsidian Key before her. Their spirits, or what was left of them, warned her of the dangers ahead. They spoke of a shadow realm beyond the vortex, a place where time and space bent to the will of Nathaniel Blackthorn. One spirit, a woman named Seraphina, revealed herself to be Blackthorn's long-lost love. "He sought to bring me back," she whispered, her voice tinged with sorrow. "But the price was too great. He tore apart the fabric of reality to find me, and in doing so, he lost himself." Seraphina warned Clara that Blackthorn's fractured consciousness was spreading, infecting those who came too close to the key. "If you don't stop him, he'll consume everything." Before disappearing, Seraphina handed Clara a shard of black crystal. "This is a piece of him. Use it wisely." Clara's investigation led her to meet others affected by the manor's influence, including a former treasure hunter named Marcus Kane and a psychic medium named Lila Hart. Together, they formed an uneasy alliance, pooling their knowledge and resources to confront the growing threat. Marcus revealed that he'd once been hired to retrieve the Obsidian Key, but had fled after witnessing its horrors firsthand. "It's not just an artifact," he said. "It's alive. It feeds on fear and regret. Once it latches onto you, it never lets go." Lila, meanwhile, claimed to have visions of Blackthorn's past. Through her, Clara learned of his tragic descent into madness after Seraphina's death. "He loved her too much to let her go," Lila explained, "and that love became his undoing." However, not everyone shared Clara's goals. A shadowy organization known as the Order of the Veil sought the Obsidian Key for their own purposes, believing it could grant them dominion over both worlds. Led by a charismatic yet ruthless leader named Victor Hale, they offered Clara a choice: join them or face annihilation. The Order revealed themselves to Clara during a tense confrontation in the manor's catacombs. Victor Hale stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "You think you can stop destiny?" he sneered. "Blackthorn's return is inevitable. Why fight it when you can rule alongside him?" Clara refused, narrowly escaping with her life. This encounter forced her to question whether she could trust her newfound allies, or if betrayal lurked closer than she realized. Later, Marcus confessed that he'd once worked for the Order, stealing artifacts for their collection. "I thought I could control them," he admitted, "but they're playing a game we don't understand." Clara began to suspect that even Lila might not be entirely trustworthy. Her visions often came at critical moments, guiding Clara toward decisions that benefited the group, but always at a cost. Through visions triggered by the key, Clara pieced together fragments of Nathaniel Blackthorn's past. She learned of his tragic love affair with Seraphina, whose death drove him to seek immortality. She also uncovered hints of a ritual that could permanently seal the gateway between worlds, but at great personal cost. The ritual required a sacrifice, a willing host to anchor the gateway and prevent Blackthorn's return. Clara realized that whoever performed the ritual would likely die in the process, or worse, become a vessel for Blackthorn's fractured consciousness. Despite the risks, Clara resolved to attempt the ritual. She knew it was the only way to stop the cycle of destruction. As the Order closed in, Clara and her allies prepared to perform the sealing ritual. Each member of the group faced their fears and regrets, knowing that failure would doom them all. During the ceremony, Clara confronted Nathaniel's fractured spirit, bargaining for humanity's survival. Blackthorn appeared as a towering figure composed of shifting shadows, his voice echoing like thunder. "You dare defy me?" he roared. "I am eternal." Clara held up the shard of black crystal Seraphina had given her. "Your time has ended," she declared. "Let go." For a moment it seemed as though Blackthorn might relent, but then his form twisted, becoming monstrous. "If I cannot live, then neither shall you," he screamed, lunging toward her. In the climactic battle, Clara fought alongside her allies against the Order and the shadowy entities unleashed by the Obsidian Key. The manor itself seemed to come alive, shifting and warping to hinder their progress. Victor Hale confronted Clara in the heart of the chaos, wielding a dagger forged from obsidian stone. "You can't win," he taunted. "The key will always choose its master." Clara disarmed him, using the shard of crystal to shatter the dagger. With the Order defeated, she turned her attention back to Blackthorn, who loomed larger than ever. Summoning every ounce of courage, Clara completed the ritual, channeling her own essence into the gateway. The manor shook violently as the vortex collapsed, pulling Blackthorn back into the void. Though they succeeded in sealing the gateway, the victory came at a steep price. Marcus sacrificed himself to hold off the remaining members of the Order, while Lila disappeared into the shadows, her fate unknown. Clara survived, but she was forever changed by her experiences. As dawn broke over the forest, Clara stood amidst the ruins of Blackthorn Manor, the Obsidian Key clutched tightly in her hand. Though the immediate threat was neutralized, she couldn't shake the feeling that the key still held sway over her fate. In the aftermath, Clara struggled to move on from the events at Blackthorn Manor. Though the immediate threat was neutralized, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Obsidian Key still held sway over her fate. In the final scene, she discovers a hidden compartment in her apartment containing a fragment of the key and realizes the cycle may not be over after all. The whispers returned, softer now, almost comforting. "We are one," they murmured. "Together we will endure." Clara stared into the mirror, her reflection flickering briefly to reveal Nathaniel Blackthorn's face smiling back at her. The screen faded to black as the whispers crescendo into laughter.